Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Reading from Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. The Lord inquired from Bhattacharya, why have you changed the original verse? The word is mukti, and why have you changed into bhakti? Bhattacharya replied that mukti is not so valuable as bhakti, and therefore mukti is sort of punishment for the pure devotee. He had therefore changed the word from mukti to bhakti. He began to explain his realization of bhakti and said, any person who does not accept the transcendental personality of Godhead and his transcendental form cannot know the absolute truth. Anyone who does not understand the transcendental nature of the body of Krishna becomes his enemy and defies or fights with him. And for such enemies of the Lord, the destination is to merge into the Brahman effulgence of the Lord. Such kind of mukti or liberation is never befitting the devotees of the Lord. Although there are 5 kinds of liberation, as getting admission to the same planet in which the Lord resides, that is Salokya, being able to associate with the Lord, having a transcendental body like the Lord, having opulence like the Lord, and merging into the existence of the Lord, a devotee is satisfied being engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, without any particular interest for any of the above-mentioned kind of state of liberation. Specifically, a devotee is most averse to merging into the existence of the Lord and becoming without any individual identity. A devotee considers oneness with the Lord as worse than hell, even though he may accept one of the 4 kinds of liberation in consideration of being engaged in the service of the Lord. Of the 2 possibilities for merging in the transcendence, namely 1, becoming one with the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and 2, becoming one with the personality of Godhead, the latter is still more abominable to a devotee. The devotee has no aspiration than to be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. On hearing this, Lord Chaitanya informed Bhattacharya that there is another purport of the word mukti. Mukti pada means directly the personality of Godhead. That is to say, the personality of Godhead has innumerable liberated souls engaged in his transcendental loving service. Or he is the ultimate resort for the 9th subject called liberation. So in either of the above-mentioned import, Krishna becomes the ultimate shelter. Sarvabhuma replied, in spite of such import, I prefer bhakti to mukti. Although according to you, there are 2 kinds of imports of word mukti, still, because the sound is equivocal, I shall prefer directly bhakti to mukti, because by direct perception, mukti refers to the context of becoming one with the Supreme. I therefore hate to utter the word mukti. I feel enthusiastic in uttering the word bhakti. As at this, Lord Chaitanya laughed very loudly and embraced the Bhattacharya with great love. Thus, the same Bhattacharya who took pleasure in explaining Mayavadi philosophy became a staunch devotee, so much so that he hated to utter the word mukti. This is only possible by the causeless mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya, and by his grace, he can turn iron into gold, like a touchstone. After this incident, all persons marked a great change in the Bhattacharya, and they concluded that this was possible only by the inconceivable power of Lord Chaitanya. And they took it for granted that Lord Chaitanya was none other than Lord Krishna himself. Ramananda Roy, talking on high level of Krishna consciousness with Lord Chaitanya. So that's the next chapter now. Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy. So the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita has described Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the ocean of transcendental knowledge and Sri Ramananda Roy as the cloud which is produced from the ocean. Ramananda Roy was a greatly advanced scholar in devotional service, and by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, he gathered all such transcendental conclusions just as the cloud achieves its existence from the water of the ocean. As the cloud appears from the ocean and redistributes water all over the world and then again goes back to the ocean, so by the grace of Lord Chaitanya, Ramananda Roy achieved his higher knowledge in devotional service, and thus he again went to Lord Chaitanya at Puri after retirement from service. When Lord Chaitanya was visiting the southern part of India, he first of all visited the great temple Vishakhapatnam, the temple known as Jiara Narsimha Kshetra. It is situated at a place known as Simhachalam, 5 miles away from the railway station, Patan. The temple is situated on the top of a hill, and there are many temples in that quarter. But Jiara Narsimha Kshetra temple is the biggest of them all. The temple is full of beautiful sculpture, still wonderful for many students, and on account of its popularity, is a very rich temple. There is an inscription in the temple which states that the king of Vijayanagara formerly decorated this temple with gold and smeared the body of the deity with gold. For facilitating attendance at the temple, there are free apartments for the visitors. The temple is managed by priests who belong to the sect of Ramanujacharya. When Lord Chaitanya visited this temple, he praised the deity and quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Although Lord Narsimha is very severe to the demons and the non-devotees, he is very kind to his submissive devotees like Prahlad. Lord Narsimha Dev appeared as an incarnation of Krishna when Prahlad, a boy devotee of the Lord, was too much harassed by his father Hiranyakashipu. As the lion is very ferocious to other animals, but is very kind and submissive to his cubs, so Lord Narsimha, although he appeared ferocious to Hiranyakashipu, was very kind to Prahlad, his devotee. After visiting the temple of Jaya Narsimha, the Lord proceeded further south into India and ultimately he reached the bank of the Godavari. On the bank of the Godavari, the Lord remembered the Yamuna of Vrindavan, and the nice trees on the banks were considered by him as the forest of Vrindavan. So he was in ecstasy there. After taking his bath on the bank of the Godavari, the Lord was sitting on the little off from the bank and was chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sitting in that way, the Lord saw that the governors of the province, Sri Ramananda Roy, had reached the bank of the river, accompanied by his associates, many brahmanas, and a band party. The Lord had asked Ramananda Roy, the governor of this province, from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and the Lord requested by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to see the great devotee Ramananda Roy at Kabul. I think we'll stop here, Prabhu. So basically, we just ended the earlier chapter with seeing the transformation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And that is a very important pastime in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, because somebody who was such a staunch Mayavadi scholar, to convert into a devotee is like a big deal. But we can see that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to him the different meanings and the different interpretations of the Atmarama verse and how really the bhakti is the topmost, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was completely transformed to an extent where he saw that verse, Satyenu Kampa Susumikshamano, in there, Bunjana Evata. Anyway, the end, it is like there is the bhakti word, a mukti word, right? Mukti Pade Bhaya. So it's like basically the verse just says that somebody who is able to continue with no matter what the challenges are, no matter what it is, as long as you're able to continue, they become qualified candidate to receive the liberation. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained to him that word mukti in there did not mean the liberation as we know it, like merging into Brahman or something, but rather it really meant that we are in service of Krishna. And that is what I remember back in the day when Rumapad Swami was here. He gave this verse he had gone through, and then the same question was asked that, what does liberation mean? So then he had explained that for us, the acharyas have explained, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also explaining that really the word of liberation for us is not mukti, but rather it is understanding our original, true, identical spiritual form and doing the spiritual services to the Lord in that identity, in that true spiritual identity. So that's what it meant. But again, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya still did not want to take it, and he still wanted to use the word bhakti. So we can understand how much he got transformed. And then we are moving on to the next chapter, which is again a very important pastime of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu meeting Ramananda Roy and discussing the confidential subjects. One important thing that was explained here is that how the rain clouds, right? Like how the water is evaporated and the rain clouds get it, but it comes back to the earth. Similarly, Ramananda Roy took all the knowledge from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He learned everything from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but then later on he went to Puri and then he started serving Mahaprabhu towards the end. As we know, towards the later pastime, Antelila, it was Ramananda Roy who was there serving the Lord. So it's going to be very beautiful to listen to the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.